My parents like to take in the homeless. My mom and stepdad have their flaws. But one thing that I will say about them is that they have the largest heart when it comes to the homeless. It's not surprising at any moment for them to call us and tell us someone will be staying with them. A few days, it has bitten them in the ass before, but usually it goes well, until it doesn't. For the past 3 years, they have had an agreement with a homeless man in town that when it gets down under freezing, he can sleep in their garage with his dog. They leave the door unlocked to the main house so he can use the restroom and shower, and have him fixed up with a heater and air mattress in the garage. This guy is someone that me and my adult siblings had heard about many times, but never met. Last week, with the brutally cold weather, they went and found his camp, brought him to the house, and set him up in the guest room with his dog, because the garage was below freezing. He asked if they cared if he smoked some weed on their porch, and they didn't mind. I was blessed to meet him on Saturday morning. I'd had the flu, and went to my mom's house to pick up some extra tea bags, some cold medicine, and some homemade soup. He came outside while my mom was talking to me, and she introduced us. I had my dog with me, and she is usually very wary of men, especially heavily bearded men. She crawled right into his arms. She didn't bark. She just snuggled him and loved on him like I'd never seen her do before. Fast forward about 2 hours, my sister 21 still lives at home, and texted in our sibling group chat that she had barricaded herself in her room. She said she heard some loud commotion upstairs and then a ton of yelling and screaming. Mom was not responding to any texts, so we called, and she said that the guy started going ballistic and then fell out into a grand mal seizure. My stepdad got him loaded up in his truck, noticed he was not breathing, and rushed him to the hospital about 20 minutes after dropping him off. My stepdad got the call that he had passed away. He had a 108-degree fever, and it caused his body to shut down. The police were contacted, and my parents are facing no charges. His death was ruled an accidental overdose. They told my parents that his talk screen showed lethal levels of fentanyl, methamphetamine, and an undisclosed substance. They still have to meet with the detective to give their statements. I feel so bad for them, as they were just trying to help someone in need, and now they're tied up in this mess. They really do have hearts of gold, but man, this one really backfired on them. Editing to add, they never just pick up a random person on the street. There's a build up to it. They start by giving someone a meal and asking their name, and just treating them like a human being. Then they'll see them again and again and help them every time because they're genuinely good people. This one escalated to him staying in their garage and eventually overdosing in their home over a period of 2 to 3 years. During that time, they found a mutual connection in his sister, co-worker of my mother, for one reason or another. I don't really know. He couldn't go home. I'm aware that my parents are dumb as fuck for doing this. I think this might have driven the nail home for them. However, in reflection, that's not what I want this story to be about. I want this story to be about him. He was known around my town pretty well. He would always go out of his way to talk to strangers, especially if they looked sad or lost or like something was on their mind. He never asked anyone for anything. In fact, if he was offered money, he would refuse more often than not and would ask instead if he could do some work for them. When you would buy him a meal, it was common knowledge that he would split it into thirds and give the largest portion to his dog. When my mom asked him why he did this, he said that he found that dog on the street one night when he was going to end his life. He said that she was sent to him as a sign to keep going, and she gave him purpose, so she was always going to come first. He was the guy that would run across 6 lanes of traffic to help push a stalled car out of the road. He was the guy we watched take his own coat and shoes off to give to another unhoused person. He was the guy who always wanted to help others. He had obtained stable employment working at a feed store in town. It wasn't enough to get out of his situation, but it was a start. He was trying to get back on his feet. Unfortunately, he is now just another statistic. The police told my parents that when they tested the marijuana in his pocket, they found traces of all the drugs mentioned earlier in the flower. They said that he might not even have known he ingested it. I know the likelihood of that is slim, but it's just, IDK. I feel really bad for my parents. They had a close bond with this guy, and they are devastated by what happened. I also feel bad for his family. They have been in contact with my parents to collect his belongings, arrange care for the dog, and so on. This is so sad, and I wish there was more being done to stop the crisis.